Hattie, and I am back with part 2 of Black Pearl. So in this part I'm going to be doing the whole of the interior and I will be showing you what I did for it. Now it is on the Sims 4 gallery now. If you want to go and download it, the links are going to be below, and I put it up today, so I was pretty happy with that. I was really happy to see it up there and all the positive comments, so if you commented, thank you, because that means a lot to me. But anyway, what I was doing here is I was putting in the steering wheel because I forgot that in the exterior part, so I was quite happy to have remembered that, because I would have probably forgot if it wasn't for the amount of comments that said remember it because it will look really good there. So I did, and I put it in the end. This is when I was trying to figure out the lower part of the ship. So this was the whole basement floor of the boat, even though it's not the basement for the actual boat because it's not underground, but it is still the bottom of the ship. And I was trying to think about the layout for it, so I left all this part in. I did it in a really unusual order. So what I did was I painted everything in complete black, and then I went back to it eventually and I redid every single bit of it, really. I didn't leave any of the blackness in, and I used a lot of wallpapers in the end because I was trying to decide what I would have for it. And it was really in between the idea of having it completely black and really gloomy and really rotten, or having it still being a pirate ship, which would have been really nice decorated at one point in time, but it's just had lots of mold growing on it and things like that in between. So this build isn't going to be for everyone. I mean, I already know that because it's a very peculiar style of build that I've chosen to do, which isn't really like me because I'm into very pretty, beautiful builds, and I really focus a lot on my interior with pastel colours, but this build was very different. But some of my film builds will be, and I think that for this one, it's just that particular case. But the rest of my film builds, which will be coming up on my channel, will be unusual builds. Some of them will be pretty, some of them won't be. So it just really depends. But anyway, what I was doing here is I was making a front entrance. I put some flags there. I wasn't really sure what for, but I put them there anyway. And I used some of those tattered rags for curtains, which I am in love with. I think they look fantastic. They're from the Spooky Stuff Pack, and I use them all the time. Same with the floorboards, and also the wallpaperings of this build at the moment. It's all from the Spooky Stuff Pack, but even though a lot of it doesn't stay this way, I still really like it for the build. I think it looks really good on the outside of the build, but I think maybe for the interior, it was just a little bit too much for me, so you'll see me take that out in a little bit. But anyway, what I was doing here is I was trying to fill up this hallway. I was really undecided on what to have there, especially as I'd imagine that when this ship sets sail, it would be very difficult to have things in that room. So I just put some general storage items, and then I was on to the rest of the ship. I was trying to think about it in the most practical way that I possibly could, but sometimes that can't always happen. So I really did have to improvise a little bit, and that's what I ended up doing for most of it. This in here was the place where the pirates would sleep. I thought they'd have a joint bedroom and they'd all sleep here together because it would be in the basement part, and it probably wouldn't look as nice as this. In fact, I would imagine the pirates to sleep on bunk beds, and that would really save a lot of space. Unfortunately, we don't have that yet, but I'm hoping that in the future we might have some items like that, and if we do, then I'll come back to it and maybe put some bunk beds down here because that would give a really lovely overall effect to this room. But I had to settle with what we have, and that is the singular beds, which aren't that posh, I don't think. I don't think they're that expensive either. I think they're just standard prison beds, actually, now I think about it. They might be the ones that are in the Sims 4 Get to Work, or we got them with that. I'm just not too sure. Anyway though, what I was doing is I was filling up the room with some general items on the walls, and I was also putting in some tattered curtains because I definitely wanted curtains for this room, even though I wouldn't imagine it to be that pretty. I would definitely imagine this room to be at one point a very pretty room, and the pirates have just ruined it. And that's what I really did try to do with this whole build. So I really wanted to give the impression that at one point it was a boat, which was a beautiful boat, and it had a fantastic interior. And then the pirates came along, took it over and ruined the whole thing, and it's pretty much falling apart. So that's what I really wanted to do in here. This was a storage room in here. I thought that that was very important to put in. I didn't want it to have no purpose though, so what I did was I put an art easel inside here, even though it would probably not really fit in with the whole storage room, but I thought anyway, it's a room for a purpose. The Sims can come in here and they can learn a skill, and it's quite helpful to have that instead of just having it nothing in here and just having those storage cabinets, which would still look nice, but it's up to you whether you leave them in or not. You can always take them out if you don't like them there. What I was doing is I was adding some ivy into the inside of the build, which I've never done before, and I was really experimenting with the whole idea of that because I thought ivy would look very nice in this build, especially as I did want it to be rotting from the inside as well. So places in the ship which would be a little bit cracked, maybe some sides of the walls there, maybe some ivy or moss has leaked in, and that's what I was really trying to recreate. I did get rid of some of it, so not all of it stays, but I think that still it was quite a nice idea, especially for the bottom of the ship. But overall, I was pretty happy with how it turned out down here. Then I was adding some wallpaperings. I was trying to decide what would be a good neutral colour down here. And I was also trying to experiment with some flowers, but I thought the flowers were just a little bit too much. And also, I can't imagine the pirates tending to those flowers and keeping them nicely because I just can't imagine pirates doing that. So I thought I'd take them out and instead I would just fill this area up with general decorative items such as banners with the skull and crossbones on. I used a lot of those in this build, and I also used some of those posh curtains which I just love. So even though they are there, they are very elegant looking. I think that it really does fit into what I wanted for this ship, which was the overall appearance of a ship which had once been a very lovely ship and now it isn't anymore. So I was happy with how that turned out. This is a little seating area down here, so I couldn't decide what chair to use. So in the end, I ended up using some stone chairs with the impression that they've probably been burnt to shreds or something. I don't know how they have, but that's what I was thinking with those over there. So everything is pretty black down here. It's a very dark and gloomy area, but I think that it does fit in with the boat and it's the best with what I could do out of a pretty bad situation because let's face it, there aren't many pirate objects with The Sims 4, unfortunately. I mean, if there was, then I could have done really amazing things with it and recreated the whole ship as accurately as I could have, but I still had a lot of fun doing it. Now, there aren't going to be 3 parts to the interior. There's only going to be 1 part of this interior, so the whole thing is going to be in 2 parts. And the reason is because it didn't actually take me that long to do, so not as long as I thought it would have, which I was quite happy with as well. So at the end of this video, you will see a hint of what is to come next, and that will be with the soundtrack of the particular movie, and it will probably be a 10 or 15 second clip. So if you can work out what it is, then you will know what is coming up next. This in here was the barrel room with the cannons, I think, or it could even be a place to store alcohol. I wasn't really sure, but you can have this being whatever you wanted it to be. I put 3 chairs there because I wanted to imagine the pirates sitting down and aiming at things. So I thought that those 3 chairs would look quite realistic for a room like this. It's the closest that I could get. I didn't want to add too much moving objects to that room because I want the build to be as usable as it possibly can be. And I feel as if sometimes with the moving objects cheat, it can make things very difficult, especially with the whole glitchiness. So I tried to keep away from making the cannons even more realistic than I could have, because I could have added things inside the cannons or on the outside of the cannons to make them look a little bit more realistic. But from a gameplaying point of view, it wasn't really realistic for me. But this was when I was changing around the wallpapers. I decided on having quite dark colours on this floor. So I do still change it around though. I really like the paneling colour of the wall here. So I would imagine that at some point it would have been a lot paler than this, and maybe just after time it's just darkened and darkened. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the dirt and the grime of the ship, but I'm not sure. That's what I was imagining here. I think that some parts of this upstairs area does change around, so you'll see that in a little bit. I was really unhappy with how it was looking at this point, and I was trying to decide whether I should just start from scratch. But what I did was, as soon as I added a corridor which was distinctly in the middle there, and I added some walls and broke it up a little bit, I think it looks so much better up here. So you'll see that in, I think, probably about a couple of minutes time when I start to add some walls up here, and I think it starts to look a lot better when everything's sectioned off. So it's not just a big place downstairs with lots of things going on. It looks a lot more closed off, which I really like about this build, and you will see what happens with that. What I was doing at this point though is I was still experimenting with wallpapers. I was trying to find a green colour because I associate a pirate ship with the colours green and red. I'm not sure why, but I think that the green would just look really special if I would have found a green colour, but I couldn't, so I went with blue in the end, which still looks nice, but just not as good as I thought that it would look being green. So unfortunately I couldn't have that, but I still like the blue colour and I think that it goes really well. I was then just adding some general items around here. I wanted this part of the build to be the kitchen because I didn't want the kitchen to be on the top deck, because I wanted the top decks to really be the exclusive decks, and I wanted a whole bar area up there with the pirate captain's chambers, and I also wanted a dance area and things on the top decks. So I thought the kitchen would go really well being on the middle floor, because I didn't want it being a main feature of the upstairs of the house, because the house was really supposed to be very special on the top floor, and I thought that it would really do well being down here, a little bit kept away from the rest of the house. So what I did was I put in lots and lots of cabinets on the top there, I think mainly to take the focus away from the really oddly shaped room, because it is a very oddly shaped room, but the thing that I really like about this particular room is the fact that I could fit so many different things in here, and without even worrying about what they were, I could just fit them in. So I fitted in so many unnecessary items in this room, and I added a lot of storage cabinets, I added some flowers there, thinking about herbal remedies, things like that that the pirates might want to collect and use for their everyday meals. So that's why there are some flowers there. And I just put some general items around. I put another skull and crossbones there. I was also thinking about the knives, because I was thinking to myself, I definitely want a weaponry in the pirate ship, and I was trying to think about where I could put it, and in the end I had it being quite an open space, but I will explain that when it comes to it. So anyway, what I was doing is I was just readjusting all the wallpapers. I was still a little bit undecided on the two areas in between the big areas of this whole second floor. But I think in the end, I think it did work quite nicely, and I was happy with it. You'll see me change it around a lot though. I did go with the blue in the end, but I think it was just the long process in between that, and I really didn't want to leave anything out in the build. This was when I was starting to put in the weaponry items, so I definitely wanted some knives there. I know it looks very cynical looking at it from here, but I actually think that it does make sense for the pirates to have weapons and things, because it's not supposed to be a pretty build, it's supposed to be accurate. And in the Pirates of the Caribbean, they do have items like that, so I thought downstairs, a little bit kept away, would be pretty good for this build, and I think that it would make a lot of sense for them to be there. This room in here was the guest room, so whenever the pirates would have somebody very important, I doubt that they would have guests, but if they did, this is where they would go, this is where they'd send them, and maybe it would be an enemy that they were trying to suss out and try and keep their enemies closer than their friends. I'm not too sure. That's what I was thinking though. I was thinking about the possibilities of having a guest on the ship, and this would be the spare bedroom. So this could really be anybody's room. I mean, if you were to use it for your own Sims and use it as a family boat, maybe a family which has just gone completely crazy over the years and they wanted a pirate ship to live in, and it could work pretty well for them. But if you do use this boat in your game, then I would love to see some pictures. If you have me on Twitter, the links are going to be below my Twitter profile if you want to send me some photos of it, because I love to hear about what people do with my creations after they are on the Sims 4 gallery. It just really interests me, and I think that everybody has a different image of what this boat is going to be like in your game, especially as it is just a very unique piece of work. I did see a lot of comments from people saying that you wanted to turn it into a party boat, or maybe a luxury romantic cruise ship, I don't know, but just let me know, and also send me some screenshots, because I love to see stuff like that. Anyway, this was when I was trying to change the second floor up still. Okay, so I went with red at this point. Red was a colour which I was really thinking deeply about throughout. And I think at this point as well, I'd seen a lot of photos from the Black Pearl, the actual pirate ship, and I was flicking through the images of that. So I was trying to think about what would stay true to the build, or as true as I could to it. So I was thinking a lot about the red colours which were used in that, and they used a lot of browns on the interior. So I think for the top floor, the floor that I'm just about to work on here, that was what I was very focused on. I was very much focused on the original rooms that were shown in the film, but of course not every single room was, but a few of them were, and a lot of them were a little bit difficult to recreate. But I think for this room, I was very excited about doing this room, and I think as soon as it was time to do this bedroom, I was really, really happy because I was ready for it. I was really looking forward to doing it. And I think that this room is my favorite room in the whole of the build, and I really enjoyed making it. So what I was doing here is I was making a 4-post bed, which is very difficult to make in The Sims 4. And what I did is I put 4 pillars each side of the bed, and then I put some curtain rails above that, and I used a BB Move Objects cheat, which you may need if you do download this house, so I definitely recommend you use the BB Move Objects cheat if you download it anyway. But I used that, and I also just pressed number 9, and that lifted them up for me, and that is what gave that really nice effect, or at least I think it did, and I was happy with that. It's still very usable, and the Sims can use it just like they would with a normal bed. It just looks a little bit more pretentious. So that's what I was trying to do there. This was the part when I was trying to split the bedroom up a bit because I wanted different sections in the main captain's bedroom. So he would have his own office area, and he'd also have his own bar up here, which would be private to the rest of the pirates, and I just thought that that would be something that would seem a little bit more realistic for me to have. So that's why I did put in a humongous area for that. Something that I didn't include for this whole boat, I didn't include any computers or any electronics, full stop, I don't think, apart from a stereo. But the stereos were the really old type ones, the jukeboxes, I think that's what they're called, but I'm not too sure. But I did include those, and I think that's the only electronical items that I used throughout. So no televisions in this build, but I think that that would make a lot of sense for what it is, because I definitely can't imagine the pirates all sitting down and watching some TV together. I just couldn't picture it. So I think for the era that it's supposed to be set in as well, I just think it makes a lot of sense to leave that sort of stuff out. And that is probably why there are a lot of candle lights and also candelabras in this house. So you'll notice those a lot, especially with the chandeliers. They are all candle lights instead of actual lights. I don't think there are any lights in this build apart from those candle lit ones, but I'm not too sure either. But anyway, so what I was doing is I was putting some rugs around this area. I was trying to put in some dark rugs, so I experimented with the black rugs, but I still wasn't sure on them afterwards. And I think what really made up my mind for it was when I started to put the little details in, like the curtains and the rest of the items for this room. And then I was decided on what I wanted for the rugs, which were very difficult to think about. And I did spend a lot of time umming and ahhing about which rugs to put where, because we don't have a set red rug, which would look very posh and would also match this whole room decorations. So I thought with what I had, maybe the grey would look the best, and I think I did end up with the grey in the end. I was then just putting some general items around, so I put in lots of barrels, mainly for cannons or maybe for alcohol storage. I wasn't too sure, but they could be used for lots of different things, even for keeping secrets in. Maybe messages in a bottle could be kept in there. I don't know, but we will see. Then I was putting in some curtains, so I used red curtains throughout, and I used them on every single window because I thought they looked really lovely like that, and I think that it did go really nicely with the room all in all, so I was quite happy with that. This was the bathroom in here. So the bathroom was quite an awkwardly shaped room because it's very long, but I wanted to include everything in here. So instead of including a shower, I put in a bath, which I think looks a lot more accurate being a bath instead of a shower. And I think with the era that I was trying to keep to, I think the bath looks particularly nice in this room. So I was happy with that decision. Then I was just putting in some towels. I went with the black and gold ones in the end. And as soon as I found those, because I've never seen them before in my life, I was 100% sure that they've just arrived as I was doing this, but I'm pretty sure that they've probably been there for a long time. I just haven't noticed them. But at that point, I was pretty shocked because I found something new which I'd never discovered before. And that was the end of the bathroom. So the bathroom ended up being a black and gold colour. Something that I really like between the bathroom and the bedroom is that the bathroom does contrast it a little bit, and I was quite happy with how the overall look of that turned out. This in here was supposed to be the bar. I was going to have a room for socialising in, and this was what I really thought. So I had a humongous area to fit a bar and some general items like stools and chairs and tables, so that I could really get the whole pirate feel here. And especially if you use this whole place as a club, it would look really, really good if you had a club of pirates, which would all be up here, and this would be the club hangout room, and it would be exclusively for them, so you could even have a special doorway either side to keep other people out, and you could have that. And that's what I was really thinking about at this point. I was also just rearranging the chairs there. I thought tables of 4 would look really good. And I think the maximum number that you can have in a group is probably 8. But even so, if you had 8 pirates here and maybe you could have 2 groups of pirates, then you could have them all here. And you could make a humongous gathering and it could look really amazing. And I'd just love to see that. So hopefully I'll be able to do that myself at some point and maybe I'll have a pirate group. I don't know. We shall see. What I was doing though is I was finishing it off with some experimentation of the wallpaperings. So I was trying to think about the different colours. I didn't really want to go with red because I was thinking a lot about the fact that I had used a really large portion of the house on the bedroom over here. So I didn't really want that, and I was trying to think about the possibilities of different colours. I can't remember what colour I went with in the end. So it might have even been red. So if it is, then this is a very, very red upper floor, and I apologise for that. I think though eventually if we do get more colours of wallpapers and I mean in future expansion packs or stuff packs or game packs, then I will come back to this build along with the bunk bed features and I will redecorate it, and maybe I will do something really unique with this area. But I think with the lack of choicing that we had, I think it was pretty difficult to have a lot of choice of wallpapers and things, especially as we don't have them. But this room in here was the gold room. I was thinking a lot about a room which would be purely for treasure, and it would be a place where the pirates have collected things, and it would be a very trustworthy room. So that's why it would be up here, because I would imagine the pirates bond together to be very, very strong. So I think that the pirates wouldn't steal from each other, they just steal from other people, which of course isn't fantastic, but they're pirates, so I can't really judge them. And I was thinking a lot about the artwork and just general items that I could put in that room. So I used a lot of gold, I used a lot of trophies, and I enlarged them to make them look quite nice and as if they had been stolen from parts of a different boat or something like that. That's what I was really thinking about at that precise moment. This was just another bathroom. I wanted to make this as standard as I possibly could. I didn't want anything to be very unique in that part of the house because I thought with a bathroom I just wanted to fill a purpose, which is of course to get the Sims needs up, and I thought just putting it there would be absolutely fine and it wouldn't really need to be any bigger than it was. This here was the outside area, so when the ship would potentially be floating in the water. Of course we can't have that. For imagination, for imagination's sake, I would definitely imagine that it would be very special there and it would be a really amazing place to have the Sims be outside, and you could take loads of screenshots of them and all the different activities that they could be doing out there. And it's really the same with the upper parts of the boat, which I was currently decorating. So I did put in a dance floor, and I also wanted to zoom in a little bit to this part where you can see the steering wheel because I don't think I showed it that much in depth. But anyway, that is the end of the build, so I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope to see you all future videos. Thank you so much for watching and I'll speak to you all soon.